Welcome to the Dr. Sarah Experience podcast show, where we talk with some of the most amazing beings who are currently creating and shaping today's culture. And I'm your host, Dr. Sarah. Andrea Belluso is an international award-winning Italian fashion photographer who, apart from his commercial work, is constantly touring the world with the desire to inspire and empower other photographers and creatives. He began his photographic career at the age of 16 and went on to work as a photographer and a video producer, capturing iconic fashion names such as Linda Evangelista, Christy Turlington, and Naomi Campbell. Andre currently facilitates seminars, lectures, and workshops around the world, empowering photographers and others to choose a more powerful form of creativity and a more authentic sense of self in their photography. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Andre Belluso to the show. Andre, I am so excited to have you on the show today. I cannot wait to discover and explore what has yet to be discovered. But I'm so excited to have you on. And I do like to start the show with, I wonder what we will discover and what we will explore. So I sense already in that space, but welcome to the show.
Sarah, thank you so much. And yeah, what a lovely invitation. And thank you for having me on the show.
Well, I'm wondering where should we start? Because there's so many directions we can go.
Oh God, there's a million. I mean, we haven't known each other that long, and already we've been talking about so many different things. And where would you like to start?
Well, what's popping for me is a curiosity to know what your current creation is or your current adventure that you're in the midst of being right now.
Well, I have 32. Well, actually, it's more because I added a few last week, creations going on at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. And and I'm present with them. Well, not all of them all the time. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute. I'm going to explain in a minute. Yeah. But I'm present with most of them every single day. And the ones that I'm not present with is because I'm allowing them to have the space to contribute themselves.
Wow. What a concept that is.
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about that, actually?
Absolutely, totally. First of all, I'm very aware that everything, I mean, since we are energetic beings and not physical beings, the physical body is just a tiny part of who we actually are. And that is science. I mean, just normal everyday science actually says this now. Finally, they got it. So everything is energy. Everything is made of energy. So I went and looked up the definition of what an entity is. And an entity is actually, the definition from the dictionary is a being with energy, with or without a body. In other words, everything is energy. Now, the funny thing is that by profession, I'm a photographer, among other things. And the word photography comes from the word photon. And photons are what actually keeps all the molecules together. So, and the funny thing is that the molecules themselves is 99% emptiness, just nothing, energy. So nothing solid. And the photons, same thing, it's just energy, it's nothing solid. So it's however we see things, however wherever we decided that something is solid, an object is solid, that we actually solidify that. When in actual fact, air and a brick, are exactly the same. They're actually empty.
Wow.
Okay? So, and so that has contributed a lot to what I do and to my creations and all these things. So if a creation or an idea or a picture or whatever it is, a project, is an entity as well by this definition that I've just given it, which is actually a non-definition because it could be anything.
Yeah.
Then I try and change my perspective to my relationship with my creations. So, and I treat them as my lovers. So I have many lovers, which don't have a body, but they're very beautiful. They're very kind, they're nurturing, they're caring, as any relationship should be.
Yeah.
And in a normal relationship in this reality, if you went to your lover and said, hey, at the end of the month, I expect you to have X amount of money because I have to pay the bills, I have to do this. So it's your duty to give me that money. How would that end up? Not so good, I don't think.
Pretty
So
heavy.
pretty
and
heavy.
reactive.
So yeah, so why do we do that with our creations?
Mm.
And I come there from the perspective of a photographer that on top of it, also I hold a lot of workshops and seminars and private coaching to photographers and other creatives. And for me, a creative is actually anybody that chooses to create their life.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
not just photographers. and I see so many of them at so many classes around the world and now online that started becoming a photographer because of a passion that they have, something they're really burning for. So in other words, a lover, a mistress, a lover, and they end up treating it like somebody that owes them money.
Wow.
And with this
Yeah.
heavy energy of it's a job. And that baffles me.
And how much of the time does that ruin it for people who are the creatives, who are looking
Completely.
to bring in things differently? And when you add a conclusion to it, or like the way you described it, make it solid when it's meant to be in this flow of space, that how many people end up shutting off their creation in order to do work. And this is very profound.
I have an example that I can give you from yesterday, and it's related to one of my closest friends, who is a genius. He's a creative director, and we met through work. He was my client. He was one of my biggest clients. And then I brought him in on some other projects, not as a client, but as the creative director, because I saw that every time that we got together and created something, it was just an explosion, and it allowed me to go beyond anything I could imagine. So it's this, and I also believe very much in this, when you combine energies of different people and who they choose to be, how that can explode. I see that with him. I see that with Amanda, my wife, that, when we co-create, it's just like goes beyond anything that either of us could imagine. And it's this combination of people where there is no competition, there is just contribution, right? So I saw him, I've seen him through the years. We've known each other for a very, very long time. And I've seen him like being the creator and creative person that he is. And all of a sudden he went into, and doing it with really like true passion, like really burning for it and having fun with it. And all of a sudden he went into the thing of this being a job and him being a slave of his job, when in actual fact he was making his job his slave, and he chose to give it all up. So he's actually he's younger than me, and he's retiring, and he's leaving, going back to the UK in just a few days. And you can't force somebody to see something that they don't want to see, including themselves.
Yes.
And I've tried to tease him many times and like, hey, maybe this is just a period, be with it, whatever, no matter how long it takes. And, maybe you'll come back to it, and he's just not there because he's not seeing the fun that he could have. He's just seeing the job that he's created out of it.
Yes. Like this linear point of view, that how this reality tends to function, or let's say dysfunction with things.
Totally.
Like I like to see.
Yeah.
But what you're tapping into and speaking of that, and maybe it's like one of those things, he'll get it when he gets it, if he gets it, but
if he gets it, exactly.
But I love this concept that you brought up about co-creation, and maybe even this idea of creationship with the things in your world and the people in your world, and how really there's no separateness. At least that's what I'm aware of. It's all kind
thank you
of
for
like
that. Totally. And when we talk about non-separation and oneness, this is what I'm talking about. It's really, if we removed, imagine this world, imagine this planet without the existence of even the word judgment.
Please.
Because all the separation starts with judgment, because you're not allowed to have oneness with a person because of this and this and this reason.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to co-create because of this and this reason. And most of the time it's competition. You believe that you're competing with them, and you say that you feel threatened when in actual fact you're just trying to destroy the possibility that you see because, well, I don't know why, but we just do it.
We tend to do the you versus me kind of energy where it's like a conquer and divide, or a comparison, or compare contrast, but it's how a lot of times I'm aware of at least this reality functions. And if we're aware of that, like you are and I am, and probably a lot of people watching this podcast, is that when we can look at it and perceive it and see the judgment, it's then an invitation for us to maybe ask a question or show up differently, or just be the difference a lot of times to counter it.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I mean, I studied this thing called Project Redefine Beauty, and it's actually talking a lot about that. And it's really what I see. The reason why I created this project is because I was tired of seeing, especially young people and especially young ladies, judging the crap out of themselves and trying to fit in, and not seeing the gift and true beauty that they are, that goes way beyond the physical aspect, that goes way beyond the so-called defined success according to this reality and what it has to look like and what it is, what they've made so solid and real, instead of actually seeing the true gift. And that for me is the beauty. And when I take pictures, regardless whether it's for commercial purposes or my Redefine Beauty private photo sessions, I all of a sudden don't see the physical aspect anymore. I see the being, and I invite the being to show up. And most of the time it does. And when I see that, it melts everything. It really melts everything. There's no boundaries anymore. And I hear so many people in front of my camera after these sessions, and I'm not taking credit for that, because the only thing that I'm doing is that I'm not judging. I'm just putting my barriers down. I have no judgment of me for those few minutes. And God knows that I do judge a crap out of myself a lot of the times. And I'm working on that. But I at least invite the person in front of the camera not to have any judgment of them or of what they perceive other people are judging of themselves and of the person they have in front of the camera. And when that judgment is dissipated, the true beauty comes up. And I've seen that through so many photographers, that either they have a perfect technique, perfect lighting and everything, but the picture is flat, it's dead. It just does not say anything. It's just like, I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
And that's what I actually could. And it's not a judgment, it's an awareness when I say that's an ugly picture.
Yes.
Right?
It's lacking, that energy, the flow, the being, the everything you described.
Exactly. And then I see a picture that has no technique, is completely wrong, is going against all the rules of photography that I don't believe in anyway, but it's gorgeous, you know. And I had a photographer just a few days ago that sent me a private message on Instagram and said, hey, according to you, what percentage is important in the technical aspect of photography? And I said, if I'm being generous, 30% is technique and 70% is pure energy.
Wow. Well, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And let me just say real quick, I have to interject for 1 second, is the energy you bring in as being you. Even my sense of being with you right now provides even my space of ease and relax and space of me being me. And I could see then how you bring that to others, and even just how you are just in the room being it, and an invitation for them to join you then when it carries over to your photography as well. But I sense you're natural at this space of being yourself, and especially when you're coming together with another person. And then when it comes to the photography, it almost sounds like then there's, I mean, it's probably beyond what we can even comprehend, but maybe even other elementals contributing. And wow, I get a read on it, but I don't have words for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for the acknowledgement. I mean, the thing that I could suggest is that, you know, I discovered something a few years ago when I was in a grumpy mood and I was going through depression and things like that. And I just walked down the street and I saw a person that obviously looked a lot more depressed and down than me. And I just saw, I really perceived the beauty and the kindness of this person that they couldn't even see. And I just smiled at them. And I didn't say a word. I just smiled, and he smiled back at me. It was an older gentleman, and he smiled back at me. And I saw how that smile, without a single word, actually changed his reality. Even if it was just for a few minutes, it changed his reality. So that's the contribution that we can be to others. Is you don't have to say a word, you don't have to do anything. It's just allowing yourself to be in that space. And I didn't have any judgment of him.
No, and that's this judgment-free space. And I sense that's what you're bringing to all your creations and your art and your photography, is that space where people can access it, and you're accessing it. And it's less about doing, and it's more about being present and tapping into just that. I get like kind of that space wherever you're joining.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And for me, my photography, including the commercial, because I facilitate my professional models in this as well.
Wow.
And it's basically all I do is inviting them to see them at least a tiny bit of how I see them, or rather how I perceive them. And the physical aspect, the body starts contributing as well in the pictures, because it feels that it's not being judged for those few moments, and it's allowing itself to also show the person that has created that body to actually see the beauty. So the body also becomes more beautiful in the physical aspect, according to this reality.
Amazing. Wow. And as you're talking, it's like I'm getting a circle back to what you said at the beginning of, even as you started talking about your businesses, almost in the same way.
Yeah. For me, there's no separation between all of these things, and with Amanda, we create a lot together. She's my manager as well as being my wife, and my best friend. And, and the thing is that she came out to me one day and she said, can we look at all our projects? And already then we had like 20 projects together. And she said, can we look at all of them, every single one, and ask us the question, why are we creating this? And we looked at them and we realized that every single one, including, we have 2 TV shows in production right now, and including those that are commercial TV programs, there's an element of just distilling, injecting consciousness in every single one of them. An invitation to choose greater, an invitation to choose something beyond what they might be choosing now, that is keeping them stuck in not creating what they actually could be creating if they chose it.
Phenomenal. And you know what, Andrea, I would love for you to speak further about your awareness, your knowing of consciousness and that space, the way you just described it. Is there anything that would contribute to our listeners, and our viewers, to just get a little more taste of that?
Yeah, consciousness, basically, we both know that it includes everything and it judges nothing.
Yes.
So we're going back to the element of judgment that we've been discussing throughout this call. Yeah. So what I would say to those that are, hearing this, and I'm saying hearing this because maybe not everybody's actually maybe listening but not willing to hear it. But those that are willing to hear it, try just, even for a few minutes of your day, have no judgment whatsoever of you and where you're at right now. So, and I can already hear a lot of people saying, how the hell do I do that?
Yeah.
I'm judging the crap out of myself, and I know why I'm judging, and I have very good reasons to judge the crap out of myself.
A judgment of the judgment of the judgments, basically.
Exactly. And then you go down a spiral that is endless.
Yeah.
And photography for me is a gift in that way as well, because when I do these photo sessions, I give every single frame that I shoot. The only ones that I don't give is the dark ones. And that's just for practical reasons, because it would just be clogging up their computer even more. But otherwise, the ones with the funny faces, the ones that, especially the ones that would be judging themselves the most. And I tell them about this that I'm just about to say, is like, find one picture in one of the series that you judge the most. The one that you would just go, oh God, I look ugly, or this is terrible.
Yeah.
And please spend a few minutes of judging the crap out of it as much as you can. Just judge it, judge it, judge it. Put all the judgment that you can, even the ones that you couldn't think of, just put them in there.
Yeah.
Okay, then go forward in the series until you find a picture that you truly adore. And you're so grateful for it. It's like, wow, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And show gratitude for that picture for being in existence. And then go back to the one that you were judging and show gratitude to it, because the one that you just loved would not be existing without the contribution of the one that you just judged. And that is not just for photography. So everything that we go through in our lives that we judge the most, all our interesting choices, we actually created them knowing something, not cognitively, that would actually create greater.
That everything's a contribution.
Everything is a contribution. Everything is a contribution.
Beautiful way of describing it. And what an exercise to encourage others to do, to really just see it from a space of awareness, and the allowance, and really looking at even if we go with judgment as being heavy, and the judgment of whatever that photo was, and this one over here that's lighter in energy in terms of light or heavy, that if that heavy one didn't come in, then this other one wouldn't exist as a light one. So it's almost like everything contributes, and we don't always know it. And in the moment, at the time, sometimes it is reflecting back or going, oh, if that didn't come in the way it did, this wouldn't have opened up. Or, we've had brief conversations about these things already, just in our little short time of conversating, even outside of here. But it's just, when we can look at it as everything is part of this, that we don't have to separate and divide, like we were talking about earlier with the black and white stuff. It's a game changer on so many beyond levels.
It is. And I have to say something with this, because when you're willing to go there, you're opening up a gate of possibilities. And a lot of those possibilities are challenges for you to go even further in this discovery of who you actually are.
Yes.
Right. And what the universe does in those cases is that it shows up, it brings up everything that is stopping you from creating greater. And that could be perceived as extremely challenging, extremely intense. And it's very easy in those moments to just back out and go back into your routine.
It'd be easy to make it a problem and a limitation and get stuck there, even with the person you mentioned earlier, your colleague, friend, and leader. Like, if we go into that problem almost mentality, how limiting that is from these other possibilities that open up.
Absolutely. And the one piece of information that I can give here is also that judgment always destroys everything. Whenever you're judging something, you're destroying all of your creations. Everything you desire is being destroyed by you. Every time you're grateful, it's actually a contribution to creating even greater. And the most important piece of information is that judgment and gratitude can never coexist. So which one do you choose?
I wonder. I choose gratitude.
Me too. Me too.
Wow. I love that distinction. And since we're on the topic of gratitude, do you have some words to describe that, even to you, what gratitude is for you, or how the nuances of that are for you?
Gratitude for me is the acknowledgement of the contribution.
Yes.
Wow. And it can be with yourself. You can be grateful for you too. And you can be grateful for those so-called interesting choices. I had a dark period of my life that I talk a lot about, when I was going to kill myself, and I was going through a divorce. I was going through bankruptcies, 2 bankruptcies. I was going through, from going to being very wealthy to being actually in debt and homeless for 24 hours. And I created all that within the space of 2 weeks. So that's a kind of potent creation.
That is a potent creation.
Yes, and I did not see it that way until I had my kid. My son was 6 years old at the time, so he's actually the only reason why I chose not to kill myself. And I'm so grateful for him for that as well.
Yeah.
And there you see again that it's acknowledgement of his contribution, even though he was not aware of it cognitively. He was being a massive contribution, and for that I'm truly grateful for. And so I made the choice, instead of killing myself, to go into a mental home and actually begging them to lock me up for my own safety. Okay, so I was locked in there for 2 months with 13 different very, very heavy medicines that were turning me into a zombie, basically. And it's actually my brother who discovered, this weird and wacky thing called access consciousness. And he just gave me a business card and he said, I think this might be something for you. I don't know, but use it or don't. And I booked my first access bar session. And it was also a facilitation where this facilitator is actually a wonderful friend of mine called Ms. Erdogan. She asked me a few questions and she started saying, okay, so let's talk about the bankruptcies. Are you done with those 2 companies? And it's like, well, yeah, actually I am. I said, okay, well, that was easy. So can you acknowledge that you might have created these bankruptcies, not cognitively, but energetically, you actually created this? And it's like, okay, so I'm willing to go there, fine. Yeah. And I was still in resistance, I still had to prove my point. And I said, okay, so what about your marriage? I mean, are you done with your marriage? I said, of course I'm not done. We have a kid. I said, I didn't ask you about the kid. Is your wife being kind to you? Are you being kind to her? Are you being kind to yourselves? It was like, no, she's judging the crap out of me and I judge the crap out of me and she's judging the crap out of her. It's a lot of judgment. So no, it's not fun. We haven't had sex for 5 years, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And apart from the moment when we actually conceived our son, that was the only thing.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was after, because he was 6, so we were done. We did not have sex for 5 years.
Wow.
And she says, so can you acknowledge that you're done with that marriage and you actually created this divorce? It's like, no, because I don't want a divorce because of my son. And I said, okay, so without going in your head, and please answer me within a fraction of a second, would your son be happier with you guys being divorced? It's like, yes, but I don't know why I'm saying this. It's like, okay, so and she question after question after question, she got me to see that she got me to acknowledge that it was all my creation. And in the end, she said, so can you acknowledge how potent a creator of magnitude you actually are? And now that you can acknowledge that, what can you choose to create now? And that for me was like, wow. Really, seriously, I get to create my life. And then I started playing with more of the tools, and I didn't have any money, so I couldn't take any more access classes. And I told her, hey, I want more of this. I want to know more, but I can't afford, I don't have a penny. I can't even buy fresh bread. I was down to that level.
Yeah.
And she said, you're a photographer. You still have a camera? I said, yeah. We need pictures and videos. Can you do pictures and videos for us? And we do a swap. So I started doing class after class after class, and like, whoa. And I started literally within a couple of months of that first bar session, what I created by ask and you shall receive, my ask of the universe after 2 years of not traveling anymore and not having any work coming in, it was like, hey, universe, please show me countries that I've never visited before. I love traveling. I've traveled since I was a little baby. And please show me those countries that I've never discovered before. And please allow me to do that by empowering people to actually be able to choose this, what I'm choosing now, and spreading these tools. And please allow me to do that through photography. And just a few weeks later, the biggest lighting company in photography in the world headhunted me and offered me a position with a lot of money that was just that. It was to travel the world, holding massive classes to photographers, talking about what I talk about, which is light, which for me, talking about light has very little to do with technique.
It's so fascinating. There's so much in there that's just like, let me acknowledge you for that. And thank you so much for sharing all that, and how what I'm hearing too, as you were being facilitated and you became in this awareness of really that there is choice in the limitation that you didn't even know was possible. And just by going and getting out of what I call like the cognitive thinking, where we're in our thought, feelings, and emotions that tend to drive us into that spiral of negativity or anxiety, depression, which us energy beings don't function from that space.
No.
You know, the others are okay with it, you know, some of them.
Yeah, some of them are okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But us, no. And when you were being facilitated and asked, like, boom, to get to right to your knowing. And then there's this sense of like, oh, a new choice universe is available. And now you have choices. And it was like, what?
Yeah. And, you know, for me, that was like opening up like a massive universe. And having spent 2 months in a mental home and seeing a lot of other, you know, incredible people in there being really tortured, because it is a torture. It is a torture. It's a prison camp, like the worst you can imagine. You know, I've seen, you know, here in Sweden, they still use, in some cases, electroshock. And there was this beautiful girl. I mean, I'm not talking physically, a beautiful being.
Yeah.
She was an artist. She used to draw. She used to sit on the balcony where we used to sit there and smoke, and all looking like cadavers and feeling sorry and pitiful for ourselves and whatever. And she was sitting there in a corner by herself, drawing, sketching. And she was so talented. Wow. And those times that we got a chance to chat, the conversations were going somewhere else. And one day she was, you know, having a fit, and they tied her up with force and violence, and they did electroshock on her, you know, and she was a zombie for the next week. And those things should not be allowed, because that is really one of the worst unkindness you can do to another being.
Well, and that speaks to how, and unfortunately my profession, a lot of times they follow protocols and they follow these rules or regulations and or theories to how you show up to a person, rather than being present with them and the empowerment of them. Like you were just sitting with her is the greatest gift. Like that could be given.
Yeah, absolutely.
With all this other just being in the way of her truth.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm so grateful for you, you know, in the profession that you're in, having this perspective, because God, can you please acknowledge the gift that you be with choosing to be that with your profession? Because I've seen so many people that are not only unconscious, but anti-conscious within the profession.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying that in your profession, because the reason why I created Project to Define Beauty, because the same happens with a camera and not medicine, but with a camera done to people every single day for social media's sake.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same thing.
It can be located in all professions, you know, it's kind of a dark, demonic type of energy that people can not be in kindness and generative energy for each other.
Absolutely. And, you know, there was one psychologist that I had one psychologist, which was external, which was the first guy that I contacted when I went to the clinic. And then once I was admitted in the clinic, then I would only see him once a week. And then I had an internal one, and there were two completely different things. And then I had the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrists, most of them were just, you know, following the protocol, and this plus this equals this, so I'll give you this medicine. And even though I'm telling you, hey, this does not work for me on my body, because I'm a creative person and it's turning me into a zombie. I can't even say my name. This does not work for me. You're giving me lithium, and lithium is really like putting a blank. Yeah, but blank is good for you. No,
wow.
you're just killing me. You are killing me, literally killing me. You cannot do this. I refuse to take lithium. And they forced me to take lithium. And I was, this is a torture. This is a torture.
Yep.
But there was this one guy, crazy psychologist. He was amazing. And one day he said, and I was starting to get to the stage where I was saying, okay, I feel safe to go outdoors. First, I started with somebody in my company from the clinic. Yeah. And then I started feeling more safe, and I can have a few hours a day on my own, because I have to get my life back in shape. And I think I know how to do this. First, I have to clear some debts and talk to people that I owe money to, and then look for sources of income streams and whatever. So I started to have a little bit of a, being together with it.
Yeah.
And then I was, it was my day with the guy outside the clinic, and he came up with a brilliant idea. And I said, "Do you have just a tiny bit of money?" I said, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, I can barely pay the rent, but yes. What do you do? Where are you going with this? And he said, "What would be really fun for you right now? If you could choose one crazy thing that will really put a big smile on your face, what would it be?" I was just like, I would love to have a motorbike. Then he goes like, "Do you have a motorbike license?" "Yeah, I've only got a motorbike license from the UK that I can only ride up to 125cc. So it's not a big bike, but you can have a really fun bike with that. And quite cheap." He said, "Why don't you go and give yourself a present and get yourself your dream bike for what you can afford right now? And just put a smile on your face, even if it's for a day and you have to resell the bike." And I was like, "You are a genius."
Yeah, truly.
I went out of it just with this. I came out of that session with a big smile on my face. I went on my phone and I started looking for secondhand bikes of that caliber. Wow. And I found one with exactly the amount of money that I had. I spent all my money on that bike. Okay. I went and bought it, and wow, what that created. It was like all of a sudden, literally a couple of weeks later, I did another crazy thing, which was I just got a ping that, because I was forced to sell my studio in order to pay debt. So I didn't have a studio anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, if only I had a studio now, I could actually generate a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I start going online again, looking for a studio without having any money. Now, here in Stockholm, in Sweden in general, if you want to buy a commercial property, well, if you want to rent, if you want to buy it, then of course you need the money, the bank loan or whatever it is. But if you want to rent, it's not just the rent money that you need, it's actually the money to buy the contract, the rental contract. It's actually illegal to do that. It's a gray area, but that's what they do. And this person was asking the equivalent of $25,000. Okay, so for me, that figure in those days was like beyond.
Yeah.
And I see that, and I still book a meeting with this person. It was a famous photographer. She knew about me, I knew about her. And I book a meeting like half an hour later. So I get in my car, and it was literally, if this is my street, it was a parallel, but it's two long streets. So I don't know why I got in my head that it was the other side. So I get in my car to get to the other side of the parallel street. And I drive round and round, and I end up literally not even 50 meters outside my flat. I could have walked in 2 minutes. I could have literally walked in 2 minutes. I come in the studio, and it's like, wow, this is beautiful. This is amazing. Really gorgeous studio. And she says, "Well, do you want it? You're the first one to see it. Do you want it?" And I said, "Okay, first of all, I have to really apologize for wasting your time." He said, "You don't like it?" I said, "No, I love this studio, but I have to be totally honest with you. I'm broke. I can't give you the 25,000, and I just don't have that kind of money. And thank you for letting me dream for a few minutes, but I'm sorry for wasting your time." And he said, "Why don't you want to listen to me?" I said, "What are you saying?" "I asked you one simple question. Would you like to have this studio?" I'm like, "What are you actually saying?" He said, "If you tell me that you want it, I'll book all the other appointments that I have to show the studio, and I'll gift it to you." The only thing that I need to know is if you have this studio, can you generate the money to pay the next rent, which is $2,000? And $2,000 was a beyond for me in those days.
Yeah.
And I just said, yes, hell yes. I said, good. Should we sign the contract? I signed the contract, and my girlfriend at the time, she was with me, and she was like, are you sure about this? I said, I don't know why, but yes.
Yeah. You just knew.
Yes, I just knew. I signed the contract, moved in the studio. The week after, I get this massive client, which is where I met my friend that I mentioned before.
Oh, yeah.
And he gave me right away 2 days work. And those 2 days work at $2,000 a day, we're paying for 2 months rent.
Oh my gosh. Look at that.
And I was doing work for them for many years. I was getting at least 4 days a month.
Yeah.
And just from that one client that created more clients. You see, and that's what I'm talking about. When you get a ping that doesn't make any sense to anybody,
Yeah.
but it makes so much sense to you, and you can't put it in words. You just know that it's light, and it makes you, it puts a big smile on your face, and it gets you excited, and you want to talk about it to everybody. And you'll, even though you know that nobody will get anything out of it, they just won't get it, but you get it. Just go for it. Just go for it.
And it even started with the therapist and like to ask you what was.
It's from the motorbike.
Yeah.
It's this invitation of like, are you willing to, basically what he said was, are you willing to bet every penny that you have, you bet everything on red. What is red for you? It's a motorbike. Are you willing to put all your money on red? And I was like, hell yeah. And that choice led me to making greater choices, like getting the studio, that led me to other choices, that led me to other choices, that led me to other choices.
So every choice creates. And when you're following in the direction of what's light for you and fun for you and ease for you, if we look at that's like where like, and then the universe will have your back in these interesting ways, like, and drop things in at the least time expected. It's kind of where you're just, and that's where I sense, oh, wow. Like how the track shifted and changed. Oh, and God, that you were open to receiving. That's a huge piece to this. Like you never gave in, never gave up, never quit.
No,
you didn't, because you knew that this is available on some level. You just knew. And it's just like, wow, it's like blowing me away. I like, my throat's getting like, cause it's so touching, you know, it's like.
and I would like to put a little disclosure here for everybody listening to this.
Yeah.
Is that I'm not giving the recipe to the shortcut to the perfect life.
Yeah.
That is not what this is.
No.
Because when you make those choices, all the stuff that is stopping you from creating all of this and much more that you can't even conceive right now is being presented to you in form of insanity, in form of problems, in different shapes and forms.
And even people who wanted to limit you with even these things that were coming in, like everything shows up. Everything shows up. And the ugly.
And then and you know, when Amanda and I got married, the funny thing is that the vows that we said to each other were actually identical. In certain parts, and the certain parts that were identical was, I will choose you again and again and again through the good, the bad, the ugly, and the crazy. You know, and what we do every day is that we literally destroy and uncreate our relationship with ourselves, with each other, with everybody in our lives and our businesses, and not in order to destroy it, but in order to choose it again as a fresh one, as a new one. And
that's really, it's beautiful and beyond. And I get like the sense of now where you're functioning from is a space of like what I just talked about, being recently and being things and being the space and being, it's kind of from this point on like this, rather than it being like the linear point of view we talked about earlier. So when you're showing up and being in the kind of this way with everything, then it's just choice and possibilities and
Yeah.
questions and clearing rather
Totally.
than everything kind of taking you down and out.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a choice to show up every day and create that.
Yeah.
So I
Totally.
love that you're acknowledging too, like, it's not like, we'll call it like Pollyanna, or it's not like a positive or negative. You're talking about choice creates choice over and over, and
Yeah.
some things come in heavy and then you choose again and then you choose again. But you're in the movement and flow of being the energy that you are using for all of this. I love this conversation, Andre. So
Me too. The other one thing is that about 8-9 months ago, I made an interesting choice, and it was actually made consciously, and it led me to choose something that was very interesting, that had the potential of destroying everything that I wanted to create. When in actual fact, I made that choice thinking that it would create greater. What I actually know today is that it did create greater.
Wow.
And I went into judging the crap out of me for a couple of hours, maybe, when the shit hit the fan, basically. And for having chosen this, but wow, why did I choose that, thinking that it would create when, and it was also a misunderstanding of certain words and definitions and whatever, in terms of honoring and trust and stuff like that. And when I got over that point of view of, having to judge myself for that and going like, okay, so interesting, I chose that, but I actually did choose it, not trying to destroy, I actually chose it trying to create. I was missing some vital pieces of information. So I'm actually not guilty of anything. Yes, I fucked up. Okay, I really seriously fucked up. So what can I do to repair the damage done? More than that, I can't do. And allow the universe to show what else is possible, really. And it was really challenging because it was related to Amanda, my wife. And it could have very easily led to a divorce, and I would not have blamed her a bit. And she basically left home, and I was like, okay, well, I can't have her leaving home, so I'll leave home instead so she can go home. So I went somewhere else. I went to my brother-in-law that wasn't using the flat. I just called and said, hey, can I be at your place? I have the keys. He said, yeah, feel free, go. So I went there, and then Amanda texted me and she said, hey, I'm willing to, and she was just turning down my calls and whatever. And then she texted me, she says, I'm willing to have lunch with you tomorrow if you are willing to step out of judging yourself. And I was like, I am so ready to have this conversation, because I'm not judging myself a bit. I was for a couple of hours, but I'm not anymore. So I'm more than willing to have this conversation with you. And instead of having lunch, which is a little bit, sad or whatever, why don't we just pick our favorite restaurant and book a table there and have dinner and see, without any expectations. It was one of the most beautiful dinners I've ever had, really, not just with her, but in general. And what that created was a lot. And the thing with that was that where I'm getting with this is that with me making that choice, it was actually, I'm being extremely vulnerable here because I've never spoken about this openly before. And I'm not going to go into details because it's unnecessary, but I basically had a point of view about bodies and about how we judge so much with our bodies that are still keeping us from really have oneness with everybody. Okay. And the one little thing that I did not hear, or maybe I was not willing to hear, because maybe I was also aware that it would create what it has created until now and still creating, is that it started putting me in the question more and more and more and more of what is actually possible. But the one thing that I was missing is the part of honoring. And honoring, I thought, was one thing, when honoring in actual fact is not to treat a person with disregard. In
Wow,
other
what an
words,
awareness.
yeah, yeah. And
And I'm
it's not,
getting,
what I was hearing about honoring
yeah.
was that if, I'll give you an example. In my previous marriage, I told you I went 5 years without any sex.
Mhm.
And after 3 of these years, I actually had a mistress.
Uh-huh.
And that was a choice, because, and that was for honoring me and my body. Because
Yeah.
my ex-wife did not want to have sex. She was just not interested. She just was done and whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm willing to fight for the marriage, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my body and dishonor my body. And so I was doing that, and it was not a nice space to be in.
Mm.
And in that case, and maybe it would have created greater, but I can get the thing of like not telling somebody what they're not willing to hear.
Mhm.
And that's the only thing that I could hear in those moments.
Yeah.
But what I was not looking at is like, well, what is this actually creating in the relationship? And I'm actually dishonoring my wife, which I was.
Mm-hmm.
But so what that choice created, and I'm not suggesting that, people should do this just because I said it,
Mm-hmm.
because my path is my path, it's not anybody else's path.
Yeah.
But it opened up to the universe a thing of me saying, I want to know more. I want to have more oneness, but in the real sense, but I want to also have more honoring, and I want to have more of me, and I want Amanda to have more of her. And how does it get any better than this?
Mm.
This is my little doggy that you're hearing.
Oh,
I have to bring him on camera.
I hear him.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's the little boy.
oh my
Yes,
gosh.
he's such a gift.
Oh, I love puppy
Yeah,
time. Anytime it shows
yeah,
up. Oh,
yeah. This is our baby. Hi, baby.
ah,
I love you too. I love
oh,
you too.
so sweet. I love how
And
animals contribute too, right in
oh
the right
God, yeah,
moments.
yeah,
Talk about
in the right
honoring.
moment. Yeah, exactly.
Ah, wow.
and it's created a lot, but also it's the universe saying, are you really ready for this?
Mm.
And me going, yes, I'm ready, so bring it on. I've gone through a storm. And instead of saying, how does it get any better? And I was like, could it be any worse than this?
Mm.
No. And the universe goes like, well, there's kind of quite a lot of crap that is there that you're not willing to look at. Let me put some of it your way and see if you're willing to let it go.
Mm.
So from that period onwards, Amanda actually asked for a divorce 3 times in total.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I would, sorry, there you go. There you go. And I actually would not have blamed her. And the first time that she asked for divorce, or actually the second time, I told her, I said, you know what? I just got one thing. If I were in your shoes, I would actually want to divorce me. And actually right now, I would love to divorce myself. You know why? Because I have not been me for a long time. And what you saw in me and what I saw in me and my greatness that I can acknowledge and whatever is not being there. And I'm so fucking unattractive right now. And it's not a judgment, it's an awareness, because I'm being attractive because I'm judging the crap out of me. And I'm trying to fit into your universe. I'm trying to please you at any cost. And I'm just like, wow, a really meaningless piece of shit right now.
Well,
So
and
I
you know
don't
what
blame
I'm
you.
hearing too is as you were going along, and then when she got to the point too about bringing up the judging of you and all that, like the judgment is almost the counter to blocking you from the honoring.
Yeah.
And as that judgment started coming through, and both of you didn't judge the judgment of whatever was coming in, and like an invitation to each other to like, what's it going to take?
Yeah.
Clear this judgment. And it's really the judgment, like you said earlier, that was blocking and continued to block in whatever form it was coming in. So I just want to acknowledge that as we're going here.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for bringing me here, for allowing me to go there. And
Oh,
the thing, I'm so grateful for Amanda as well for having so much allowance and patience, especially with me, because I am not easy. When I'm in a funky mood, I'm in a funky mood, and I go all the way. I do it so well.
mhm.
What would you say for me to choose something else eventually? and and I actually had on Brendan Watt's call or series right now, um, I asked a question in this series during one of the calls, and he said, "Well, you're not willing to go all the way. You're not willing to go through whatever it takes." And I said, "Are you kidding me? I've gone through. I've told you, I've called you to facilitate me on this, so you know all the details. So you know that I've chosen to go through whatever it takes. So don't give me that." And he said, "Yeah, I'll give you that. You're willing to go through everything. Are you willing to go through the tsunamis, the storms, and everything? And the other thing is that you do it with a rope of shit tied around your neck called the judgment of you.
Wow.
And you're willing to lose everything and anyone, including Amanda, including your business, including yourself. You're willing to lose it all, but you're not willing to let go of judgment."
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
Mic drop.
mic drop, mic drop, mic drop.
As my jaw drops, because it is spot on. Like the one thing that we tend to, especially those of us, if we call it humanoids or humans, I use that, in all the work I do and whatever talk about on the show, is that that's the one thing we tend to do to ourselves better than anything else, unless we're willing to go there and change it. And I wonder too, now that you're at a space like no more, and it's almost like, who does it belong to anyways? It doesn't even sound like yours.
No, it's not even mine. It's not even mine.
Yours.
It's not even mine.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the funny thing is that Brendan's call is actually called "No More Hiding Again," which is kind of appropriate considering where I'm at right now in my life.
Well, and he's showing up to facilitate that. Certainly sounds like it. Wow. That's
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
it gets intense, and you really have to be willing to really look at all of it. And I was hiding this thing of judging me so well.
And the more it gives it, hiding it is the charge to it, because that is then how we're taught to function in this reality, to do secrets or be covert in what we're supposed to say, rather than, okay, so actually seeing it clearly diffuses it, even by thanking judgment for being there and giving an interesting point of view. You can actually, as we know, make more money and more energy flow to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes it comes in disguises, or it's been there, for different periods where it's just like this trigger that comes in, and when you least expect it, with an opportunity. I love looking at it. It's like, now when that heavy comes in like this, it's as simple as allowing it to come up and let it pop and burst and pot and pock or whatever you use to clear it, that it's now available on a level it's never been available before.
Absolutely.
And you and Amanda are willing to be that for each other in a way that's just like so phenomenal, amazing, and beautiful. I just don't even have the words for it. It's just like, wow.
Well, I mean, I'm just so grateful for her for being willing to be that space with me, and also the thing of choosing more for herself. Because the second time she divorced me, she was like, "Hey, you know what? All these co-creations that we have, for me, you're the source of all of them. And I want to find out what it's like to create for me." And I was like, "Well, go and create. I'm not stopping you. Just go."
Well, that's like what's right about this. We're not getting was an invitation for her to step into her own even greater.
Yes, exactly. And I said, "But just for your information, I appreciate you saying this, and that's your point of view. And I also have to say that it's not my point of view at all, because the way that I'm going with our co-creations is that I would never in a million years could have created any of these without you. And it's really co-creations. It's not, I'm not the source.
Yeah.
We are the source. Is when we put the two of us together that we create all of this. And then she said, "Well, some of them for me are no fun anymore." I said, "Cool, let them go."
Yeah.
But don't let go of everything because of one thing or a few things or whatever. And don't let go of everything because you want to create your life. Yeah, create your life. I'm here. How can I contribute?
It's an invitation for more to come in and come together rather than, again, this linear point of view of how we're taught. But if it's this, then you have to get rid of this or that, one or the other. And it's like not
exactly. And I was freaking out because she was still in this thing, you know, because it was a conversation that started in the middle of the night. We should have actually gone to sleep and we didn't. And I asked a question. I said, hey, are you done with us? And she said, I don't know.
Yeah.
And this whole conversation started. And, you know, and me saying to her, but just go and create. And if I can contribute in any way, I'm here.
Wow.
But just go and create. But at the same time, I was going like, well, yeah, of course I wanted to create and succeed in her things. But fuck, all of these 20 plus co-creations that we had at the time, now we have 32 plus. How the hell am I going to deal with all of these on my own? And I actually said that. And she said, I'm not, even if we divorce, I'm not disappearing. Maybe it might be a transition period where I'm, you know, allowing for you to work it out or with other people coming in or whatever. I'm not just dumping the whole thing on you. So I'm not going to be unkind with it, but I really have to create my life.
Wow.
And what that created now is that she is creating her life. And we literally, we have a whiteboard with all of our creations by name. And every day we go and look at them, asking them who wants to play and who needs our contribution and who wants to contribute to us. And we said, okay, let's look at the whiteboard and let's go through all of it. And we have to say, this is for me or this is not for me. And we have to be with that. And when we went through it, it was so obvious to both of us that some things are just mine and some things are just hers. And that's fine. I said, okay, fine. I'll take those parts. They're mine. That's fine. You don't have it. You don't even have to hear about it. I'll fill you in just as, you know, entertainment purpose or whatever. But that's it. Those are my things. And those are your things. And let's create more. What else is possible?
And you know what's amazing about that is that, and this speaks to our truths of who we are as beings, that we're our own being, that a lot of times requires so much space. Like I know for me, I just require like, you know, so much. And the other being that we're choosing to be in a space with, also likely if we're choosing a conscious being, that type of space as well. And so when you're having to be the space and then come together and create greater together as beings, that's a lot going on all at one time. Just saying. To like almost be able to look at like, oh, we can be our own beings, come together, be in the space together, and then create greater in the world together as the world at large. Like,
absolutely.
What a beautiful conversation that is that the two of you have come into too.
Oh, I'm so grateful for this conversation. It is ongoing and it has its rough moments because I mean, I was in Brendan's COP at the castle a few weeks ago, and I asked a couple of questions there, you know, and the one question that the one thing that it brought up is that, and I was not willing to even think of that. And we got there through questions that Brendan asked me, and it was, I actually use control. I love controlling Amanda. And when he said it, he said, what is the value of you controlling Amanda? I said, Amanda's the last person on earth that I want to control. And he said, is it? And I was like, yeah, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, well, are you willing to be vulnerable and really stop hiding with this? And she said, well, okay, so what's control for you? And I said, well, yeah, control is being in control of the situation. And if I can control the situation, I can actually prove how wrong I am.
Which ties back to the judgment.
Yeah.
I was getting the judgment somewhere in there too.
Yeah.
Like, but how those like coexist.
Yeah, it's because, I mean, if I manage to prove to the whole world that I'm a piece of shit, then I prove to them that I'm wrong. Therefore, I'm right. That's my righteousness.
That you're wrong. You're right that you're wrong.
That's my righteousness. I'm right that I'm wrong. I proved you right that I'm wrong.
I'm laughing on the truth. I'm not laughing at you because it's so like profound and yet like,
It's
boom,
like,
right there.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So the whole thing that I asked for from the universe about removing all judgment, where I thought it would go somewhere. And I also said at that point, I was saying, I don't know what this looks like. If you ask me what a world without judgment with bodies look like, I don't have a fucking clue. And now then came all the pieces of like, okay, honoring has to be a part of it, you know, of you, and honoring, if you have a partner, you have to honor your partner. Don't be a douchebag and treat them with disregard, because that is unkindness.
Yeah.
And so when you put all those pieces together, and then, okay, so that is done. Okay, fine. I get that now. And then the thing that is still there that I'm working with is like this self-judgment thing that keeps coming back. And it's like, and it takes a millisecond to go straight back into this downward spiral.
And you know what I'm getting as you're saying that? It's kind of the engine beneath what all that was that you've been clearing. And now that judgment used to be the fuel for that. But now that you're aware of the function of the judgment, I sense it actually won't stand a chance to be like, because you got
after this
refined judgment underneath everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. And right after the call, and Amanda was on the call as well. And I called her and I was laughing my head off. And I was like, hey, babes, you know, next time I do mental masturbation, if you're in Mexico like you are now, just tell me to go and masturbate. And if you're in front of me, just, you know, be such an invitation to go and have sex right away. And just tell me, you know, it's much more fun to either go masturbate or have sex than doing mental masturbation. It's like, yeah.
Oh my gosh, because that's perfect. Because what we're getting at, and this is like a really deep conversation. First of all, let me thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing this. And this is such a contribution, not only to me, but to the listeners, to the world, like in a way that's like so deep and profound. But when we're actually tuning into this, exactly what this judgment is, it's really not what it appears to be.
Yeah. Exactly.
It actually is posing as a way to protect you in a way that isn't protecting, and it puts you in a position that you're not even like a weird negative like superiority that's not even you, because but it was a way to protect almost from something going bad, or it's like a fallback. But and so now that that's no longer there, and you're like, oh, you add almost humor, like the mental masturbation to it. It's like, well, that's just. It's like shoo, little judgmental fly of whatever.
Exactly.
And the light around it.
Yeah. And the thing with this judgment is that, you know, when I'm talking about the downward spiral, that leads to even more judgment is for me, the way it was manifesting was that I go into judging me and I immediately create a scenario, because as a photographer and film director and whatever, I create a scenario in a split second.
Yes.
You just say 2 words and I have the whole scenario in front of you. I have the whole script, you know, the whole cast and special effects and everything.
Perfect for Hollywood. Perfect
for Hollywood. And I create the Hollywood in my head of all these things. And it's actually creating, you know, when you choose this, you're actually choosing more awareness. Except that I thought that I was aware of certain things that were actually starting those things that I thought it was were creating all these movies in my head. And it was actually not actually mine, and it was not actually real and solid. It was movies with awareness of what was going on in other people's worlds around me.
Yes.
And the whole thing is like, you know, me trying to destroy my life and myself, and like Brendan put it, being willing to lose everything that I have, including Amanda, just to prove what a piece of shit I am, i.e. my judgment. So that I'm not willing to let go, but I'm willing to lose everything else.
Yeah.
And
it just brought it in a way that you weren't, that you can see it clearly now too.
Exactly.
Like, and now it's just so, wow, it was one big script that wasn't even your
wasn't even
play.
No, it wasn't even my play. It's plays that I'm aware are going on in other people's heads.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, immediately I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so he's going in that person's head and that person's head. And then I was like, hold on a second. That is so much of a conclusion. That is so much of a conclusion because I'm making that person an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm judging again. I'm using judgment again. It's a sneaky way to go straight back into judgment.
It is a sneaky
And not of
thing,
me.
isn't it?
I will judge that person for being an asshole just so that I can judge myself for being a judgmental asshole. How about that?
Wow. Well, if we look at it that way, it's actually brilliant, but not in a way that's necessarily light for you.
No,
But it's brilliant
exactly.
awareness. And
Yeah.
but that judgment is so sneaky how it moves around to like almost bring it in. But you're now, I sense the cameraman. Oh, look at this, observing the television show of reality television show of insanity of whatever was coming in, and now you're no longer in it the way you were, and it's just it shifts every time probably that you're clearing it now, and really it's and you again you were willing to be open to receiving and not give in, not give up, and never quit. Like this is a testament to you, and I sense in all these parts then move according to as you shift it too, of course, as we do. But I just want to acknowledge that it's really
Thank
coming.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the thing with me or with all of this now is that I'm not, again, once again, I have not got the perfect recipe for the perfect life.
Yeah.
Because there is no such thing. And for me, life is a great adventure. And I wonder what the universe is going to show me more of. And I just ask for more ease and less Mexican telenovelas. And if there's any TV station out there in Latin America, I think I could be the best director of the worst telenovelas ever. I can write them all because I wrote them with my life. I've got plenty of scripts. I can even be the lead. I can have the lead role in a flash, in a heartbeat. I lived that role.
Well, the difference though, this time is you'd make money doing it. If you're going to make money from it, at least,
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I am like blown away by our conversation and just the contribution that you be and everything that we tapped into today. And again, it's like living consciously is this. This is about choosing and navigating it and talking about having these conversations. I'm just really grateful for you, Andre. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Grateful for you and for having me here, for asking these questions and for having this conversation.
Well,
thank you so much.
And it's our space has flown by. I'll say time, but we don't really resonate in time.
No.
And I wonder what else is possible. And I'm so
Indeed.
excited to hear what your adventures will be and discover that and where people can see you and your wonderful spaces of actualization of creations. So I encourage people to check all your stuff out and be cool with that. And I'm just very excited by what that could create too for you.
Thank you, Sarah. And I wonder what we can create together.
Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah, how can we contribute to each other?
I love that. And I'm definitely open to the possibilities and
absolutely.
Definitely have to explore what that is. And, as we finish up the show, is there anything that you would like maybe for everyone to go with, or just a little something that would be a contribution for them to receive and be with as we finish?
Just the thing that comes up is just be kind to you. And if you have a hard time imagining what being kind to you is or looks like, imagine your favorite person in the world. And imagine going on a date with that person and taking them to their favorite place and buying their favorite food and the favorite drinks and the favorite spot with the favorite music and that yumminess that you would like to gift to somebody, except that you would actually gift it to you and just go on a date with yourself.
Oh, I love that. I'm receiving that as you're saying it. And there's just like an ease. And I love that description of the kindness of you. And that's just really a beautiful way to bring full circle of everything we've been talking about.
Yeah. And if you can do that, I was, if you can, I went through a long period, and I still do them once in a while, and I would actually like to choose more of them.
Yeah.
But I went through a whole period where I was having 3 dates with myself a week.
Oh,
And it was not set times, but it was not set dates, but it was the amount of days a week that I was very strict on.
yeah.
I was like you would do with, a person that you just met, that you're in love with or whatever, and you just want to go on a date with this person. So you call them like, hey, you want to go on a date? Should we go on a date? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And with this Yummy invitation, and I was doing that with me. And it was really like, so what would my body enjoy right now? And I would go there, switch off my phone, and just enjoy the space of me and being grateful for my choices and my body and this planet.
Wow. And how much that will contribute to then everything you're being and creating in the world, and just being with you in that way.
You become an invitation to a lot of other people. And life literally becomes a lot funnier, more beautiful, more enjoyable, and more creative, more expansive, and more productive.
Well, no words. Thank you, Andre, so much. I'm so grateful for you. So grateful for you being here and everything you're choosing and being. And I look forward to more.
Thank you. Me too. Me too.
All right. Well, you take care, and we'll see you again soon.
See you again soon.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for being with us today. And be sure to join us next time for more conversations and insights into some of your favorite influencers. Now, don't forget to join me, Dr. Sarah, anywhere I'm on social media. And always, always, always remember that I have your back.